Welcome back to another episode of And All the Things. Today it is my pleasure to introduce to you Roma Bajaj Kohli. Roma is the founder of Wellness by Roma and the host of the podcast Awaken Your Real Power. She is a mindset coach and a self-confidence coach for teenagers and their parents, typically of ethnic descent, who struggle with feeling like a misfit. I mean, we can all relate to that feeling, and the way that she digs in to where these individuals are and works as a team to pull them forward is incredible. She helps individuals discover their identity, their sense of self, and anchor it with self-worth. She is also the co-author of an Amazon bestseller, Women Who Boss Up. She is all these things and so much more. She is a mother, she is a creator, she is an inspiration to me and so many others. In this conversation, you're going to hear several parenting tips, so listen up, parents. We talk about discipline, we talk about the experience of yoga and the deep, deep relationship she has with it. We talk about the difference between being assertive and being passive and how to really get what you want out of life. And then we really dig into what it means to use dark places as gifts and to turn our struggles into successes. Because her story takes us from truly all the things. She goes from a really strict culture to suicidal tendencies, to becoming a mother, to shoplifting, to moving through all of that to build the skills and the gifts to help all of us grow, change, and serve. So in this conversation, you will get to meet Roma and all the things, and I assure you, you will leave with several beautiful gems for yourself. So enjoy the show and make it a great day. Hello, Roma. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is truly a pleasure to have you here to share with me and with our audience all of the magical things that you have within you to help yourself and others grow, change, and serve. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about Roma and the work you do today.
Thank you, Michaela, for having me here. I think this is such a beautiful thing that you are doing to give back to the world. Thank you. It's truly an honor.
Thank you. Couldn't do it without you, my dear.
Yeah. A little bit about the work I do right now. Right now, I'm working with teens of ethnic descent and their parents because as an immigrant myself, I struggled to find a sense of belonging and a sense of anchoring into who I am. What am I doing here? This is not the first country I have lived outside of my home. So for the last 15 years of our marriage, we've been living London, Switzerland, Italy, Paris. We've roamed most of, the world just for my husband's work. Yeah, just for my husband's work. So I guess that's at the core of what I do. When I like to, there are different ways I always say it. For me, the biggest thing is understanding that the change that you are looking for outside of you starts from within you. So looking inwards is very important to me. But because we are human, we are living a life in the outside world, which can get crazy, loud, noisy, but we have to live there. We are born as humans. And so for me, what the journey is now evolving to and what I help my teens, my parents of teens understand is finding that balance, that harmony, whatever resonates more with people, is how do I live a life from the inside out versus from the outside in. And when I'm looking for my sense of belonging, am I attaching my identity or my worth along the way with things outside of me? And how can I reclaim that and find that sense of ownership, belonging within, but still continue to thrive in the world outside?
That's it. That's so spot on, because if we're not living within, I often say we'll be living without, right? And it's about the willingness to dig in so that the experience outside can be more fulfilling, more uplifting, and really less strugglesome, right? Like less effort. And yes, life is effort and life is work in that regard. But we can make it easier. So you do this work with teens and their families. What is it about our teens today that they need desperately? Like, because I look around and I see it, and I know 25, 30 years ago when I was coming up through my teens, um, we had our own set of problems. And you use the word, it's loud and noise. And I often reference the noise as all the other things trying to get in and influence our authentic voice, the thing that makes us us. And I really I worry for our kids. And as a mother of a 9 and almost 12-year-old, very selfishly, I want to know, like, what am I looking at for our youth today?
Or I think it's similar to what we would have struggled growing up. But on the surface level, things are very different for our teens today.
Yeah.
It has got to do with the exposure, the global, the social media and beyond, that they now know that there are other people sitting in other parts of the world who can have an opinion about what I'm doing, how I look, everything else, right? And so I feel like these kids are at a vulnerable point with too much exposure. But what's their biggest gift is they are born into a world with a heightened sense of consciousness. They know that they are at a time where technology is at its peak. And who has made the technology come at its peak? It's the humans. So for them to just have this understanding that the media or the noise does not control me, or the things outside me don't control me, rather I am in control of those things, is the shift only for in my mind. And I think that the regular peer pressure, the to be able to meet up to our parents' expectations, to our own standards, and to be okay with the fact that I am a human being who is full of flaws.
Yeah.
And I'm accepting that. I think social media makes that even harder in today's world. And so just understanding that, with so many filters, you can make yourself look good.
Right.
Even and it's a judgment. When people are sharing on social media, we feel like everybody has a happy life except me right now, who's scrolling the social media just to numb myself. So I think at the core, our struggles might be similar, but it looks very different today.
Yeah, it's the capacity of it all, right?
Yeah.
And as I understand, I mean, I'm not a doctor or scientist, but our brains biologically are way behind where we are industrially, technologically, and our brains are not made to process this, right? All the input, all the information, all the noise. And because our brains are so biologically antiquated or behind, we still think all that noise is the tigers coming to attack us, right? And so our brains, our bodies, everything goes up in defense. When we're not really being attacked by tigers, it's ideas and influence and judgment. And how you explained that for our youth, I'm also seeing with the adults that I work with. And I imagine you see that with the parents that you're working with too. We somehow expect these kids to know how to handle this stuff when we as adults go through the same things, right? Don't post that on social media because, my hair's wonky or something. And like the comparative suffering and just so many levels of emotion for adults too. So how do you help the adults, the parents in this dynamic, tap into where they are today with all this noise and help them pull through their authenticity? Because that's tough, right? Because I imagine you're also helping them understand it potentially for the first time.
And it goes two ways. For me, I always say, whether a teen is sitting in front of me or a parent is sitting in front of me, when you are in front of me, we are talking about you.
Right.
We are not concerned about your child, even if your child is in conversation with me right now. Because I need to understand whatever you are bringing up about your child, how does that feel for you?
Right.
What happens when your child says, does that triggers you? And what does that what does that rise within you? What does that awake within you? And then let's address it from that point onwards. It's it's individual. At the same time, it's a unit.
Yeah.
The family needs to thrive. The parents need to learn the language. And so my approach is always, if you are sitting in front of me right now, we are talking about you. If you want to
Right.
bring your child in the picture, yes, we bring the child in the picture. But the child is in the picture as an instrument helping you understand what's going on in you when your child is behaving like that. And same thing for the child. When the teen is bringing as a parent in the middle, what does your parent do or say that makes you feel that way? And what
Right.
is the onus of your responsibility in this situation to change that or to have a different perspective about it? What do
Yeah.
you think she's trying to get at? What do you think your dad or your mom is trying to get at?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever is your family dynamic. And I think that to me is very simple and is very straightforward. There's never mixing of the two. If the parent, definitely there are parents who tell me, especially in the initial section, you know, these are the laundry list of things I would like for you to go through with my child, when they're
Yes.
working with you, right from cleanliness to putting like studies, like academics, everything. And I'll be like, wow, thank you. Thank you for giving this. I'm like literally taking that load off you. But I also want you to know I will go through all this list. I will I will only touch those points where your child is willing to go within themselves too.
Right.
I cannot go in those areas where they are not willing to go.
Right.
I can gently bring it up because you have given so much of awareness to me. But may or may not result in a transformation in that area because it depends. The child might be seeing him or herself very differently from how you are trying to look at them, or how you are trying to imagine them as a perfect teen for you right now.
Yeah, and that's tough when we live in a world where, at least in the United States, I had my babies, everything was measured, everything was benchmarked, everything was on the bell curve or, this percentile, and it was all measure, 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 measure. And it was hard, right? My kid had certain needs. He had a different experience as a baby. And I had to learn very quickly that I could not measure him against everyone else. I had to learn to measure him in his own being. And it was very difficult with a child, like a baby, right? To not want to 6 weeks, is he doing this? 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and just measure, measure, measure. And I have to say, where, we turn our lemons into lemonade, it was a real gift because it took him off that bell curve. It took him out of that scale. And I had to learn to just measure where he was. And it's made it easier, I think, as he's approaching these teen years to just continue repeating, you do you, buddy. This is your experience, right? But I learned really young, and I don't think a lot of people truly get that. And then we become teenagers and our parents are like, figure it out. You should know this by now. And it doesn't translate because they're trying to become themselves. And we have no idea who they are. We have no clue who they are yet. And neither do they. It's our job to help them figure it out. But to your point, when the parents are only trying to fix the kid and not looking at how they're influencing and creating those conditions, we won't
Yeah.
see the change, right? Um,
No.
oh, that's so interesting. So I find I'm working with a family right now as well. It's a young 20s young woman and her parents, and they just want to know, is she okay? Is everything going to be okay? And I'm like, we don't have enough data to figure out what's going on. Let's start asking her questions. And so I agree with you because what I'm doing with them is how are you interacting with her? What expectations are you giving her? What empowerment to be more adult like are you creating for her to be her best self? Right.
Right.
So I find that really, really interesting. So the other thought that I had while you were talking is about the word discipline. We hear the word discipline, and I think a military officer, very disciplined, very regulated. And then we apply that word to our children. We want to discipline our children. And I think it gets a bad rap because the way we use discipline is very punitive, it seems. But there's a way to use
Mhm.
it in a positive, constructive way. What is your experience with discipline in working with this particular demographic?
Yeah. Uh, I love that because I think just few months back, I had done a whole live to my newsletter on word discipline and
Oh,
how
nice.
I've I think the word discipline should be attached with two other words. That's giving yourself grace and permission. So
Mhm.
grace and permission should come with the word discipline. Um, Fortunately,
I like that.
the word discipline, when we hear it, it sounds so military regimentated, right?
Mhm.
So fortunately, we are not at war in our home. We are at ease and peace in our home. So for me, discipline looks more like flowy and more like inconsistent sometimes. And if that happens, grace and permission is all I'm always reminding myself. So when it comes to wanting to discipline your child, I think you have to, again, look within that how do I behave or how do I react to myself when I am inconsistent, when I fall out of my practices, when I fall out of my rituals, when I fall out of my routine.
Mhm.
And really start from that place. Can you be a little bit more gentler on yourself? Give yourself a little bit more grace. And then naturally, that will come easily out for you when it comes with your team. So
Mhm.
I'll give you a quick example. My daughter, she's like 10. She knows that there is a workbook that she does. She knows that if she has the answer key, she's going to be tempted to to deep into it and then
Yeah.
write the answer. So she found the best way for her was to cut out the answer sheets and staple them and keep them separately. She gave them to me so that she doesn't even have the temptation.
That's
Whereas
awesome.
my son, yeah, whereas now these are two kids born in the same household. My
Right.
son does the workbook the similar, like he has a similar workbook, and he is doing eighth grade, like eighth grade level work, and so he doesn't. He believes in keeping the answer sheet in with it, and he believes that every time he finishes a set of questions, he wants to go back and check
Sure.
whether he got it right or wrong. And so they when they were both sitting together the other day on the kitchen table doing their work, my daughter said that I don't think your approach is the right approach. I think you should just, you're too tempted to look back at every section. Just
Right.
finish the whole week and then look back for your right or wrong answers.
Right.
My son said something very beautiful and empowering, and he said, "Now maybe you have a challenge to trust yourself." I think I trust myself. And for me, looking after every step, the answer gives me a sense of confidence to go forth and finish the rest of the work, a sense of motivation.
Mhm.
So, as profound as that sounded in that moment, did my child over the weeks, did he not get tempted to cheat? He did. Having that awareness, having that ability to give yourself the permission and the grace
Mhm.
was what was a valuable learning curve for him. That,
Right.
okay, I'm talking somewhere knowledge, I know the knowledge of
Right.
trusting myself and letting the answer key be. I think I'm ready to walk on that path. But when it comes to actually putting into practice, we do get tempted to see. But does that mean that this kid needs to now be disciplined and his paper needs to be cut out too? I want that to be his choice. I rather have them fail and lose now than
Yes.
have these bigger failures in their life later on.
I
So
think
I don't
that's
know how
such a
helpful
great
was this.
example. I think it's perfect. I really do, because when we're clear on what the desired result is, right? And for this example, the desired result is that two young people complete certain number of tasks in this workbook to a certain, proficiency. Great. How they get there, as long as they do it with integrity, doesn't matter, right? And there are 75,000 ways to get to any one place. Look at anytime you pull up your GPS or your Google Maps or whatever, right? It gives you options. There are a lot of ways to get there. But yet, in another house or in another circumstance, there might have been a negative discipline, a militant discipline of no, this is how you do the workbook. There are no exceptions. This is just it. And what that does is it takes away the experience, to your point, in a safe space where our children aren't at war, let's hope, right? Um, they get to learn what works best for them. And that's how we build a space for happy, healthy, productive, socially independent contributors to society, right? Because isn't that what we want for our kids, for them to make good decisions on their own? So I think that's a great example and a great way to reflect that discipline can be unique and it can be positive when it's communicated very clearly what the desired result is. The other thought that I had that popped up as you were talking is it made me think a lot, and I know you have a background in yoga. It made me think a lot about the practice of yoga and how you and I get on a mat separately doing the same practice, and we do it differently. We do it at our own pace. We do it with our own awkward movements, bumps, sounds, you name it. And it just really felt like a parallel to the idea that yoga life is just practice. We know what we want to do, but we have to take our time and experience the journey on our own. Does that make sense? Does that ring true for you with your training in yoga?
Yeah, 100%. I would just like to back up just a little bit because a thought came into my mind as you were
Oh,
talking
please.
with the previous example. In households where you mentioned that there is a regimented way of this is how you're going to do your workbook.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to point in that kind of a household or in that kind of an environment is the absence or the need for the ability for the parents to come with full presence and listening.
Mm-hmm.
When my son was talking about trusting, I heard what he didn't say. I heard what he didn't say was that he was ready to start being accountable to himself. He wanted to take this off the road, like this
Right.
path, to become his own authority, to have sovereignty over himself. And I saw that urge in him. Now, is he going to fall? He is. He
Mm-hmm.
clearly is many times, and we are catching him.
Right.
I'm catching him, and we are going through it. We are going through that cycle. But it doesn't mean when you hear that in your child's voice, you need to understand that, oh my God, my child is old now and I'm start panicking
Right.
like he doesn't need me anymore. No, it's rather a sense of liberation for a parent, a moment of
Mm-hmm.
celebration, because now the
Mm-hmm.
child is saying, I'm ready to wean off you. I'm ready to
Yeah.
take responsibility of this on me. Will I falter? Yeah. But I'm ready to start learning to do this on my own. And I think that's where the awareness, the presence, the listening, the space holding really comes in. And when I'm working with parents, this is why I'm always trying to go within them, is to see what's blocking you from really being that fully present, from
Mm-hmm.
really listening to even the words your kids are not saying and understanding where they are coming from. My daughter needed a sense of cold turkey, no grace, no, she doesn't need room for permission and grace. She just wants to get that distraction, which will
Mm-hmm.
tempt her out of her way.
Yeah.
Good, that works for her. I don't have to worry about it. But with my son, I know, even though he's wanting independence, wanting sovereignty, he's going to still need my support. And gently, I'm going to be able to give him that to him. And one thing I want to really pinpoint here is that what parents don't realize is how we nurture or discipline, most importantly, our children. That voice of yours as a parent remains as it eventually becomes the noise in their head. When they are on their own,
Yeah.
they are talking to themselves in exactly that tone. So if you have a harsh way of dealing with faltering and mistakes, then be damn sure your child, as they grow up, is not going to have a better way of communicating their mistakes to themselves. So
Yep.
this was just something that really came to me. I wanted to bring forth.
It's hitting. It's hitting a lot. I did that. I know that I did that. I know that, in your safe space when you're home, right? You can just let your freak flag fly or let all the things out. And I know for myself, when I was going through my time of darker times where I wasn't feeling whole and authentic and alive in my space and connected, I was short. I was quick, right? Just very, very, I would never talk to other people like that, but I would look at my kids and be like, what? And and I realized when I started to hear them speak in that way, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I had to just learn the patience and the practice to, how would I want to talk to somebody else, like a stranger on the street? I would be far kinder, far more compassionate, right? So I've had to learn to do that. So that's hitting home because I know that I was setting all of us up for just a snowball effect with this impulsive response. And I can say with certainty, as I have continued to do my work and adjusted myself, so too have they simmered down. Their responses are
Mm.
shifting. Their sense of agitation is shifting. And it feels really good. It's a lot of effort. I'm still very cognizant and conscious of how I interact with them because I know more than ever that I am the voice in the back of their head right now that's filtering into the authenticity that is theirs. And I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to mess it up. They're here to be great in their own unique and strange or wonderful, beautiful way. Who am I to get in the way of that? You know? So I'm so glad you went back to kind of put a pin in that because it was a reminder for me and also a recognition of how the work really can work.
Yeah.
How it proves fruitful. So thank you. I
Such a
appreciate
gift.
that.
Thank you for sharing that. That was such a
Yeah.
gift. I think just awareness is the key. And now, circling that back, if I may, to your question around yoga. And
Yeah.
so I studied it. I did not just do a yoga teacher training. I went back to the ashram in India where I did my yoga teacher training. I wanted to study the philosophy behind it. And so the practice that we call is like sadhana. It's, that's the Sanskrit word for it. And for me, my sadhana, my practice has had so many ebbs and flows, but I'm grateful for each one of them. And that has made yoga become such a integral part of my life. Because I think that if we get stuck to the way it needs to be done in a very disciplined and regimented way, then it becomes very hard for you to sustain something for too long. And I'll tell you why. It's because law of nature is such that we as human beings and the nature is impermanent. Everything is constantly changing every moment. So if you are going to hold on to a cookie cutter way, or even a way that you took out of the cookie cutter mold and made it yours, customized it, but there will be days your body will not want to put that much effort. And if you are not going to be able to be cognizant of the fact that everything in nature is impermanent, we are at the end just atoms that are vibrating at such a high vibrancy and frequency that we look like we look the same person in the mirror every day. but we are
Right.
changing at the atomic level of our being. We are changing every moment. And if we can honor and understand that law, we will know and we will laugh on our younger selves who
Yeah.
thought that it has to be this way or no other way.
I completely, you're hitting all the chords. I can, vulnerably again say I was that girl. I started doing yoga maybe about 20, right? So quite some time ago. And I can honestly say I spent the first 10 years just trying to be better than the other people in the room, or like the deepest, farthest, longest, strongest. And what I found when I shifted my approach to yoga, when I really got myself a great teacher who got inside of me with it, I was like, man, no wonder this has been so boring, right? Like it was just work. Every yoga session I did, and I did lots of them, it was just work. I just wanted to be a yogi, right? And
Mm.
and when I shifted and it took the work out of it because I was just where I needed to be. I moved differently. And I'm way, way better if there's a quantification for that, only because I get more out of it. I'm in it more. I don't need to go deeper into the stretch to get the fulfillment out of it. And I love
Mm.
all yoga because it's such a parallel to life, right? We can push and we can push and we can beat our hands and our fists until we're blue in the face. But that's not yoga, right? That's muscling through on a mat in strange positions. And I think that we are trying so hard to look like the right position that we totally deny the experience. And I can very much see that, as I said earlier, in my own parenting, right? Like where I have the advantage of I wasn't measuring certain growth and benchmarky type things, but obviously I'm still measuring stuff. I'm still measuring, am I a good enough parent? Did I clean it enough? Does it look right? And we give that to our children. And for me, again, I don't want to pass on my problems, right? I don't want to pass my problems to my children. We're all going to. Um, so in this way, how has yoga and your deep study and experience really at the root of it all been a guidepost to how you do the work with your youth and your families?
I think the number one thing that comes to the top of my mind, and this is something I learned from another scriptural book in the Hindu philosophy, which is about it's about a god named Krishna. He is conversing to someone who's like us. He's a yogi and practitioner. He's one of the finest archers of his time, and he's at war, and he doesn't want to be at war because he's like, I don't want to use my bow to kill these people who are opposite of me. They are my family. Some of them are my family, and I don't want to do this anymore. And so, one of the things that I really pick up from there, it's a life lesson for me, is enjoying the journey and not being worried about the outcome of it. Learning to grab the fruits in the journey itself rather than waiting to savor the fruits of the end result.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to embrace the labor of fruit, the fruits of the labor, rather than wanting to wait till the end for my tree to grow and then give me the fruit. Rather, I believe that I plant those trees under whose shade I may never have to sit. So this is what truly resonates with me. And I'll simplify it a little bit. For me, it is all about the journey. So if you talk about the physical practice of yoga, the asana practice, for me, it's about the journey that I take from being able to bend down and be able to touch my toes. That it's those days that got me to the final position of being able to touch my toes. Or,
Right.
headstand. Headstand was one of my things I always wanted to do without the support of a wall. So it's what got me to that level. I really have found a way to nurture and cherish that. And and that concept, that way of thinking and living and perceiving life gave me the freedom when I became a coach I was taking initially all the weight on me that, oh my goodness, this person who's in front of me, I need to help them have a breakthrough. If not, I'm
Right.
not a good coach. I'm not a good coach if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not able to help my teenager or my daughter right now, preteen, calm down. I'm not a good mom. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not my responsibility to make them be at ease. It's my responsibility to be that bridge, that conduit that they can access to meet their inner peaceful self when they are at stress, to walk that path with me, to meet that inner peaceful self of themselves through
Mm-hmm.
me. That's it. And I just
That's
focus
it.
on being that to my clients, to my kids, to my husband. So my relationship, both with self and with everyone outside of me, changed from that point on. Because
I
before
love
that,
it.
it was all about who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? If you make a mistake, that's it. You're out. You're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, it can't
Was
be
that your
that way.
self-talk? Was that
Yeah,
your
that was my inner critic. Yeah,
the voice of Roma at what,
yeah.
20? Is that where we are? Um,
Oh, like not even 20, like till up till now, like I'm even in my mid 30s,
mhm.
that was her. And I've seen over the period of time, I wished one day, like there was a point when I was into my yoga practice and coaching so deep that I wish one day that this voice would vanish. And now this voice is almost like a reminder
Yeah.
for me that, oh, if these come back with that intensity, with that cunningness or cruelty in her voice, with that negativity, this is showing me I need to loosen my grip. I need to increase my self love. So now
Mhm.
my inner critic's voice is kind of like, it's like I call it my rebel mind. My rebel mind's voice is kind of like a
Oh, I like
reminder.
that.
I need to lean back and I need to surrender and I need to fall in love with me all over again.
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that. And I think it's so important that we're going to rewind real quick because sitting here listening to you today, and listen, we think we put people on pedestals, yoga instructors, coaches, to where they don't have problems. They're all zen all the time, right? And I've just admitted multiple times in my life where I'm not super zen. It's the practice, right? It's the experience of it. But if I can reflect back in some of the reading that I did in preparation for this, you've gone from being a person with that kind of self-talk, and admittedly having suicidal thoughts in your 20s, to being here today with clarity and confidence and self-awareness and grace for yourself so that you can use your gift for others to grow, to change, and to serve. That's a big about face, right? That's a lot of choices. How do you cultivate the aware did you cultivate the awareness and the courage to go from, and you're welcome to talk about how you got to this place, but to go from having the
Yes.
suicidal thoughts to helping others move beyond a space where that could even play?
Hmm. If you don't mind, I want to first address what brings what not really go in much into details, but like on a high level, address what really brings one to the point of having suicidal thoughts.
Yes, thank
And
you.
this is my understanding of it or my experience of it. I'm sure there are other things and reasons in
Mhm.
other people's life, but I'm here to share mine. And I only can take
And I thank you for that.
accountability of that. So there were a lot of reasons on the outside that happened. I got married very young. I didn't know how to deal with other like relationships like in-laws and meet their expectations. I was always a good girl, wanting to do everything right, listen to my parents. And yes, those are all things that lead up to it. But
Hmm.
at the core, there were two very important things that I did not realize as a human being I needed to have within myself. And no one on the outside could give it to me. No one, no thing, no career path could give it to me. And that was self-worth and self-esteem. I had it, I had zero. If I could say, if I had the permission to say, I would say I was in deficit. I was like in deep down negatives of it, in depths of not having self-esteem and self-worth. And when you go and you start interacting with people on the outside, it's very easy for you to become the doormat. Very easy for a person like that to be treated like shit. Anyone and everyone can walk over you because you are begging for other people to validate you. You're begging for
Yeah.
other people to make you feel good about you. And so I think
And
those
part
are
of
the,
that is what helped you. Part of that is your gift. Part of that is what kept you connected. Part of that had some service, right? But there has to be a boundary to it. There has to be some kind of a catch that says, as long as I have enough, I can give, right? Which turns it from being the doormat to being assertive versus passive. Um, but all of those things were not bad. It's just too much or not enough of you
yeah,
balanced in between. And I want to point that out because I experience that. I know that my gift is service. I also know that my Achilles heel is service, right? Because if I just give and give and give and give and give, I end up empty, which is how I put myself in my darker time, you know? Um, so I just want to kind of highlight that the beauty of it is the things that we need can also hurt us if we're not using them in the right way, if we're not protecting
exactly.
ourselves. So I don't want to jump the gun, but that just again, you hit it, you hit the nerve.
Yeah.
So
I think
I
that's
see you in this.
I think that's such a powerful thing because I've always thought of it like that. You teach what you need the most in your life, right? So you serve what you need the most in your life. So there's a reason why I'm working with teams with self confidence,
Right.
self worth, and self esteem because this is something that I always lacked in my life. And not to say that I understood it all, the suicidal thoughts came at the really lowest point in my life where I was like, don't really see my presence has any value to anyone. But I also want to give a thing here is that when you are in your lowest low, you are almost like you have a tunnel vision. You're almost like with the horse with the blinders.
Mm-hmm.
And you are almost like not able to see life in its bigger perspective. And so to not make any decisions in that moment
Right.
is what I learned the hard way. I
Right.
I was so grateful. My husband, saw me and was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing in the balcony of a 10th floor apartment?" And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Sorry. Like, thank God he
Wow.
woke me up. He woke me up and he brought me to sense. But like, to
Wow, the
not,
brain is a powerful thing, right?
yes,
Like you
right.
you were sleepwalking more or less, or like,
No, it was a
wow,
conscious,
you were
I
totally
was,
conscious. Okay.
yeah, I was conscious, but it was almost
But
like ignorant consciousness,
not
right?
present, right?
Not present.
Not
And not
clear.
present. So deluded by my darkness and my shadow that I
Mm-hmm.
thought that my living doesn't have any worth in anyone else's life. But I didn't think what impact it would have on my parents' life, what on my husband's life, on
Right.
on everyone else who was attached to me in some way or form. What impact would it have on their life? Is that how could she do this? How could she give up on herself? Didn't she ever think about that we are associated with her too? And
Mm-hmm.
and so now I have that perspective. But in that moment, darkness gets so hard. So I always tell my clients, when you are in darkness, refrain from making any decision.
Yes.
Allow yourself a time. I'm going to be in my darkness for, say, 60 minutes, 2 days. But that's it. In those 2 days, I'm going to really allow, because darkness has its own gifts too.
It
There is
does.
no shutting it down. There is no shutting it down. But like allow yourself, give yourself some time and know that today I'm going to like really be in my darkness, but I know I'm going to come out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so building that healthy so
Being
the first
aware. Yeah.
boundary, yeah, the first boundary that I needed to have was with my darkness, with my
Mm-hmm.
fear based mind and be like, okay, boss, I see you really rule a lot of my life,
Right.
but you are not the place from where decisions will be made going forward. So that was the first boundary on the inside made with my shadow self, with my dark self, that no, this is not the place in which I will make my decision. And
I
I
like
took that
that.
power away from that. And then over a period of time, as I learned that, okay, it's not always these deep, dark emotions. Sometimes darkness likes to cloak itself into love and make me believe that now you can make a decision because this is the power of the mind.
Mhm.
It will push you.
I
If you
like
are
it.
not listening to it, if you are trying to rewire the neurons in your brain to work for you, to stop the negativity and allow positivity to come in the real way, not toxic positivity, your mind is going to trick you and dress itself as
Mhm.
love. Fear is going to dress itself as love and pull you and lure you into making decisions. But it's also the wisdom, the higher wisdom within you that starts learning to discern between when fear is disguising versus when
Yep.
love is truly present. And then you make decisions from yourself. And it's a dance. It's a dance
Yeah.
that I continue to do with myself, with my fear, with my ego, my guard self, which I call like, my rebel mind, my guard self, and then my authentic self. And this is a dance I keep doing up until today. And it's one of the most, what do I say? The word that comes to me is one of the most profound things a human is capable to do once we learn the right tools, once we learn to label these voices in our head and discern, oh, right now the bus of my life is being driven by my fear-based mind. Right now the bus of my life is being driven by my authentic self. And this is exactly when I work with my teams, the 16-week program, this is exactly what I help them get clear on and then be able to make conscious decisions from that place on.
That's so good. You know, it's so good because I think where where it sounds like you're taking your clients, your youth, is to just a place of identifying their purpose. I feel so much that we are just living life without purpose, which puts us on the hamster wheel, which makes things mundane, which gives us room to pity ourselves and, oh, look at me again. And I think that our youth, with that exposure and that global reach, yes, it can have a lot of judgment, but it's also a lot of opportunity and insights. We have to help our people, our kids, our adults, you name it, identify what they like, what's important, not just a quick swipe, but to stop and think and find a purpose to whatever it is that they're doing, right? If they're just swiping
Right.
and swiping and swiping and what is that? There's no discernment in that. And to be able to stop and say, is this good for you? Do you like this? Does this get you closer to your goals? Do you have
Yeah.
goals? The family I'm working with, I said in our initial consult, I said, well, why is she in college? And they said, well, I don't know. We don't know. Just that's what you do. And then it's like now we have some understanding as to why there might be some conflict with how that process is going, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what we're doing. So I think that when, whatever age we are, when we have purpose, it gets a lot easier to make the decisions about what are good for us. And when we have purpose, we're not trying to hide from the pain. And when we talk about, when I talk about suicide and the research I've done and the conversations I've had, we're not trying to kill ourselves to punish other people or ourselves. We just don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel the pain anymore. And we don't know how to move beyond that. So, was there an instigating moment for you? Was it that moment on the balcony? Tell us about the moment where you said, not anymore. This is not my new way of being. Or was it a more prolonged coming to awareness?
It was a prolonged coming to awareness for me. It wasn't in that moment. In that
Mm-hmm.
moment, it just felt like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I want to live. I love,
Mm-hmm.
I love life.
Mm-hmm.
Not my life, but I love life.
Not life right
right?
now, but
Yeah,
yeah.
not me and my life, but I love life. So
Mhm.
I think it took a lot more. And if you don't mind, what I also want to share in this moment is a quick another dark phase, dark phase of my life where I remember we were in Switzerland, giving birth to my firstborn. I was again down into deep postpartum and
Mm.
depression, like before I could even give
It's
birth.
a lot.
And it's a lot, right? And also for someone who never really worked in these many years, I never worked with anyone. No one in my family ever said to me that maybe you need help, you need to talk to a therapist because it's a taboo. It's a taboo in my culture to seek mental health.
So it's like
And so in India, if you have a
stigma.
mental health condition, you go for mental asylum, safe to be around.
Hmm.
But you don't belong to the environment. Like you need to figure out what works for you. And so obviously that option wasn't knew that option.
Right.
I never told that option was there until worthless, didn't know how to live my life, even though my
So,
yes and
unfortunately, during the recording
that
of this
soul,
episode, we had
like
several
yeah,
technical difficulties. And what I'm really
wanted
sad
and how
for
I
is that
wasn't
the story
even
that you missed is really
there with
important
someone
to
who could help me
understanding
without
how
being
truly
feeling right.
far Roma has come
So
to move beyond where
I
she was.
remember
She tells you the story of having moved to the
my
States from
son gave
India
me a sense of
and
purpose.
being in
My
a really dark
firstborn,
place,
being a
still
mother,
struggling from
he
postpartum
gave me a
of
sense
her
of
first
purpose. And
child
it was
and second child, and struggling
a
from
huge
the layover of
of self
issues and
worth,
trauma that she brought with her to the States.
So
She ended up
he
shoplifting.
knew.
This was
And so I
something she had done
remember,
before, and she
and this
carried it into her new
had
life in
a
New York
more
City. One particular day,
suicidal
she was in the
because
store with her 7-month
I
old,
remember
and she
first
had her goods hidden in her
shoplifting
jacket.
because
And somebody walked
what
up and
I was
grabbed her
doing
arm and said,
was
"Just walk, let's not
I
make a
was
scene."
bringing
And
home
as they ushered her through the store to the
value.
back of the office,
So I
she was so
value to
bereft,
people,
so
really
shaken by what she had done and what
really
she
first
was doing
close
to herself
um
that
close to kids.
the details,
So
are just so intense, but she
oh,
really had to look
in
in
that
and
moment it
understand, why am I doing
I must
this?
be providing
What
some
is it that
value.
I'm seeking?
And
And it
again,
sounds like it
never
was a search for
me or never
connection,
anyone
a search to
seen
be seen.
me.
And when she had to go out to the car where her
I
husband was
still
anxiously finding a
came to
parking
New
spot
York City,
with her children
continued this
and
habit
admit to what
from
she was
Switzerland
doing, it
moving
was a
to
call to
London,
action for her to
continued that
say,
habit. And the first
no
time I
more.
entered New
That
York
was her
City,
awakening. And
there was
from
no
that,
child. And
she
so
inspired
New
herself
York City
into and through
with
yoga,
me. I
coaching,
remember
a health and lifestyle based on good
my
food
daughter
and
at
good practices and good mindset.
7 months
And what she talks
down
about
the
is
road.
that through this
But
process,
I
she was
remember
able to find
grabbed
grace
my
and forgiveness.
coat winter as I
Consider
was
that, my
exiting
friends.
the store
And now
with the
back to
stuff
the
I had
show.
shoplifted.
Permission, grace, compassion, all of those beautiful things. And the vulnerability to share, it's so human. And I am so grateful that you shared that, because we are not here to be perfect, right? We are here to be ourselves and to explore and to figure it out. And if we as adults think that our job is to be perfect, what the hell are we going to do to our kids who have no clue what they're doing? They're just figuring it out. So if we can't hold ourselves with that kind of forgiveness and awareness, and not to laugh at it today, right? But to kind of be like, huh, yeah, I was really in a spot, but I've really come out of it. And I know for me, when I get the opportunity to share those moments of my, vulnerability, of what some might call weakness, um, I really try to take them, because I want people to understand that I'm not here today saying I have any answers. I have an experience and a journey. I have a lot of training and research and all the things. But I have my story that is highly imperfect by somebody's standard, I'm sure. Um, but I'm learning to live it unapologetically and to understand that it is a journey based on curiosity. Um, and that if we're not showing ourselves grace and compassion, we'll never be able to give that to other people. So my next question for you, before I have lots more, but to kind of start pulling us into the close, I saw you a few months ago and you had just returned from a silent retreat. And for someone like me, someone like you that obviously has the opportunity to say a lot of things all the time, I think you said it was a 10-day retreat. Can you help us get a glimpse into what that experience was? Why did you go? What did you get? Because that's fascinating.
I think the why for me over the years has become easier. Okay. And I'll tell you why. As a mom, um, it's hard for me to pull away from my family because, especially living here where I don't have so much support from family or anything, right? We are on our own, whatever we are doing. But one thing has become very clear to me. When I start seeing that my cup is getting empty, I know that the only way I'm going to get full is when I retreat and I go inwards, connect to myself. And it's taken me many, many years, 10 years or more, to be able to start giving that permission to myself that, yeah, you are not feeling your best self. I'm not showing up as the best mom that I can be, as the best wife I can be, the best daughter. Right. All my relationships are compromising, including myself. So those are the times I look outwards for looking for a place where I can go in and be with me. Yet, what I didn't know, so that's my why. My why is very simple, but so important. I think everyone should find important. A way, to spend time with themselves. If they can do it on a weekly, monthly basis, amazing. For me, with the kind of a life I live, I try to do it on a 6 months to a yearly basis. Depends. So, for me, that was what I wanted. But when I signed up for this retreat, God damn knows I had no clue what I was signing up for. But yeah, I definitely didn't know what I was getting into when I was signing up for this meditation program. And I was trying to get into this program for the last 3 years. And for some reason, I just thought I need to go to the one in Boston. They have multiple centers around US. And then somebody told me about the one in Delaware. And I got it in the first time I enrolled for it because this is a free 10-day program. They have a huge wait list. Not everyone gets in at all times. And so, I was like, okay, great. I got in and it kind of felt very refreshing to get in. And so I was like, okay, this is something I've been hearing about. Let's go and experience what it was. So a lot of people who when started hearing, my friends, close friends were like, oh my God, do you know what you've signed up for? And I said, no, I did not do any research. I just was reading their emails of what they told me, what you need to bring, how you need to prepare. That's it. I did not go online to read what were other people's opinions about this because I've heard a little bit that would come to my ear through some friends who've done it is like, this is so hard. I came back on the third day. I couldn't stay there for 10 days, whatever. And so I was like, I don't want to hear anymore. I think I've heard enough. And there's enough of that nervousness that I need to do something. So I think I'm ready to go. And in one sentence, if I were to sum it up, this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but the most worthwhile thing.
Interesting. What is your takeaway? Like what made it so much more profound than another retreat, another year?
Yeah. So number one is the takeaway of the noble silence. I think so throughout the retreat, we were maintaining noble silence from 8 p.m. the day we landed to 2:30 p.m. on the 10th day. After that, we could talk. So the number one thing what I realized the importance of becoming quiet, silencing your own voice so that you can make room for your inner intuition to become louder. And I think that silence is a gift. recently I went back for a 1 day program. And I think the noble silence was my biggest takeaway. Because I think that in that, I realized that when we are in a frenzy, when we are anxious, we don't need anyone or anything else but just to become quiet and still within our own mind and bodies, so that we can then try to listen to the inner wisdom that's already within us and really start acting from that place. So
Wow.
one was the silence. The other was, the 3 hours in a day that they would, it was not 3 hours in a stretch, but like 3 hours broken into the whole day, where we were asked to sit absolutely still. And for the exact reason that stillness, we were asked that even if we feel an itch, even if we feel an urge to open our eyes, don't do it. Just don't do it. And try to just watch how impermanent everything is. Even if I was having a sensation or a gross pain crossing my spine because I was sitting in a certain yoga posture, meditative posture, the cramps in my leg, I was amazed to see if I sat still and did not give in to moving my posture, eventually the pain lost its grip over me and vanished. I don't know where it went, but it went away.
Wow.
And so just understanding and experiencing this was a whole nother level of, like, you can say, awakening, or a whole nother level of knowing myself and knowing that what a sham this whole mind stuff is. It's just a scam. It's just trying to fool me at all times. But if I'm just able to be quiet enough and still enough, I can see all of this is nothing. And one more thing that's coming to my mind that also had a very profound effect on me was, we were given meals 2 times in a day, 6:30 and a.m. in the morning, and 11 a.m. in the morning. And then in the night, evening, we were just given a tea and a little bit, like, the new students could have one fruit or two fruits, like, just you had a choice between apple, orange, and banana. And what I realized is that most of the time, because my nervous system is not regulated and I am not calm, I am clinging onto food and the taste and the flavors of it to make me feel at ease. And I just realized the power of food over my emotions, and how much because I was meditating for 10 hours in a day, that's how our schedule looked like. I realized that I didn't actually need all that food. I didn't actually need it.
And
of course, when I
go ahead.
Yeah. No, and I was just saying, when I came back, I started feeling just resistance towards life just melting away from inside me. So, yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I'm having strands from our conversation just weaving so deeply and beautifully into what you're saying. And when we think about the noise isn't just social media coming at our teens. We've got the noise of mass marketing, where we're told to eat this much food this many times a day, and we're not going to be happy if we don't go get this snack or this bottle of wine or this thing. And then we look at what's happening in the self-care industry and how you need 17 bottles of lotions and tonics in your morning face routine. And if you're not getting a massage, you'll never be satisfied. And all of that noise is a distraction from what's actually happening in our bodies. And when we don't have the discipline to flow and to sit with the discomfort, knowing that there's something on the other side that's more pure, more whole, we end up in conflict, right? With the noise with ourselves. And to your point, then our nervous systems go bananas, and we have autoimmune diseases and diseases of all manner springing from this unrest. So the way you talk about silence as a gift as the darkness, as a gift, it takes away the judgment, and it takes away that experience of self-pity of, oh, boo-hoo, look at me sitting here. But to look
Right.
at those troublesome moments, or what we might in our current knowing way of being, right? This noisy way, are bad, but sitting and acknowledging the pain, acknowledging the emotions, and then finding a way to let them go, to not keep telling that story, I think is so important, because that's where we can find our purpose. When we get rid of all the noise and we figure out, really, my job right now is to sit here for 3 hours and to learn to sit with the pain, to learn to sit with the comfort, to learn to sit with the change. And we don't give ourselves enough time for that. So for you to do that for 10 days is extraordinary, awe-inspiring, but I also can understand the depth of commitment and work that went into that experience. But that's the only way we become fruitful on the other side, right? We can't grow if we don't change. So as we close today and we think about our youth and discipline and influence and moving beyond dark times, what is it that you're working on today? What projects do you have coming up that our audience and I can look forward to participating in?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that from my work is my one-on-one, the Awaken Teen program that I help teenagers for 16 weeks, and I help them understand the different voices in their head and really understand themselves in a way where they can make conscious choices, decisions for themselves, anchor into their purpose, etc. And now recently what I'm working on is this Awaken Mind series that this is specifically for parents. I want to create a support group of parents who can talk about anything under the sun, in this safe space where I have some, titles of the workshops, but we are talking about right from everything to finances, to sex, to how to deal with stigmas and how to help our teen emotionally grow, like every topic you can think of related to parenting and teens and preteens. We are going to be having some experts. We are going to have some one-on-one, like just me trying to orchestrate the sessions and workshops. And so that is something I would love to invite everyone on. And another third thing that I'm working on is in October, just for moms. I want to take mothers away for some time and really go on this healer's retreat where we are working on elevating the healer within ourselves. And so these are the three things that are my current, passion, labor of love, passion projects.
That's wonderful. So who would be the ideal target, right? Because parents of, what age, or, I think you said, or I know you said you work with particularly youth with diverse ethnicity. Tell us a little bit more about, who these are crafted for.
So the teen program is for a teen who's in high school and above. If the teen can be a little bit more mature in the middle school, who is willing to, have this conversation and do the work on themselves, like you said, it takes a lot of commitment to want to understand yourself. And it's not going to be a linear path. It's not going to be one straight line you're going to walk on. You will be going in circles. Then you will be going in parallel lines. And then you will be going in, the ECG lines of up and down. And so I prefer if it's high school and above kids. And, until they are in their mid-20s, that's a perfect spot for me. Okay. For the one-on-one teen programs, for parents, it doesn't matter. As long as you are a parent of a preteen or a teen and you feel that I think I can use this support, this help, this knowledge, then you can come. Obviously, this is a free series of workshops. So it's not something I don't think really young parents who have toddlers might not even benefit from this, but from kids who are 8 years and older, if you have kids who are 8 years and older, this is perfect for you. And for the retreat is basically moms who are in a similar journey, who feel the calling, who feel the inertia within themselves that, yeah, there's something that I'm always against in my life. Could that be me? What is that? And how can I move away from that? Then this is for you too. So yeah, similar audiences, but I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, I say that this whole conversation is selfishly driven because I want to know. And when I find that I want to know these things, I have to believe other people do too, because we spend so much time living in the land of trying to be or look perfect or whatever the measure is. But we are all struggling to find our way. And I really I only know my journey, right? Now I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, I'm a lot of things. But if I'm struggling with this too, then how can we help other people? And I never like to keep a good thing to myself. So bringing you here today was very much, very insightful. I'm incredibly grateful. I have a lot to think about. But I also really just hope that people, mothers, fathers, caretakers that are listening, can understand how truly important it is, no matter where you are in the journey, to stop, to pause, and to be reflective about how we are interacting with our world, because we are teaching our children every day, every single day. And what they see in the world is not what I want them to live with, right? So how can I do a better job going within myself so that I can give them more? And to do so with respect to my time and energy resources, and to not deplete my well of hope and service. So as we close up today, is there anything that you would like to leave our guests with? I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, who has a podcast, and he asks the billboard question of, if you could have a billboard to say one thing to the world, what would you put on it?
Yeah, for me, it's what Gandhi said, is like, be the change you want to see in the world. So if for any reason something in your life is not going right, it could be big or small, instead of looking outside, I urge you to look within. That's going to be my billboard.
That's beautiful. And it's so spot on. I've had that quote in my life for as long as I can remember, because it is me. It is my experience, and it's how I interact and then move beyond these things. So thank you for that. And Roma, if you'll share how we can get a hold of you. Can we find you on social, the website? Tell us how we find more Roma.
Yeah, so my daughter tells me that if you just type my name, Roma Bajaj Kohli, in Google, you'll find lots of me. So
it is true. I did it.
Yeah, she apparently did a Google search on me, and she says that, Mama, I just have to type your name and I see so much information on you. So I am on social media at Roma Bajaj Kohli. Instagram is my jam, so I'm mostly there. But I do have a website that is currently under works, because I'm evolving from, for the last 2 years working with teens. Before that, I was working with working professionals. So, but you can always find me on my website and my email, which is revive@wellnessbyroma.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Roma, I thank you so much for having the courage to transcend all of the dark times and to use them as those beautiful strands into this cloth you've created. I am really excited to watch as you continue this journey, and I'm really grateful that you have chosen to use your gifts in such a powerful way. The youth really are the future, and I'm grateful that they have you. So thank you so much, and please just keep shining that big, bright, beautiful light of yours, and I know it will continue to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you, Michaela, for having me. My honor to be here.
It is deeply an honor. And to our listeners today, think about what you can do to celebrate the way you use discipline in your life, the way you shake off imperfection, and the way you look at the dark times as gifts. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you make it a great day. Thanks so much.
And that's a wrap on another episode of And All the Things. If you enjoyed today's show, please like and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you really liked it, please go ahead and rate it. Then think about who in your life might also need to hear it and any of the other episodes we have shared. Then share it with them. When you find something meaningful, something valuable, you've got to share it and pay it forward to those you care for. Thanks for joining us, and follow along on Instagram at MyJoyCoach to see more of me, your host, Michaela Burdyshaw. And as always, make it a great day.